despite the counts against them, the indictments against them, being impeached twice and all of this other stuff, he is the presumptive GOP nominee. And you don't seem to have the issues in your favor, you believe. So because of that, you're going to manipulate the system as best as you possibly can to avoid him possibly running for re-election again. That appears to be their strategy.
Stephen A. Smith is back giving terrible political takes.
Here's the problem. What Donald Trump is on trial for is literally the exact same thing his attorney pled guilty on. It says Michael Cohen pleads guilty in Manhattan federal court to 8 counts, including criminal tax evasion and campaign finance violations. If the charges against Trump are bogus, were the charges against Michael Cohen bogus? The facts are the facts. Here we have the attorney for Donald Trump who pled guilty to the charges. That wasn't a Democratic setup. No Democrat made Donald Trump illegally pay off a porn star and use his attorney to hide the payoff because he did not want the voters to know about it. Let me remind Stephen A. and Sean Hannity, this happened before the election because Trump did not want the world to know that he paid off a porn star. This is called a fact.
Roland Martin, friend of the network, has to explain all of this to him.
It's much ado about nothing. To my liberal friends out there, all you're doing is showing that you're scared you can't beat them on the issues and the merits.
So short-sighted, so misinformed, beyond embarrassing, honestly.
2020 election. Interfering with the election. Is this trial bogus? Did Donald Trump not call and say, find me those 11,000 votes? Oh, guess what? There have been at least 3 people who've already pled guilty who were indicted with Trump. So if this is a bogus case, why did they plead guilty? One of them was a lawyer. It could be because they realized they were guilty and they agreed to testify against the other defendants, including Trump. You can't call that trial bogus. You can't say it's unfair, the Democrats are going after him. If you break the law, you break the law. This man is not above reproach.
Martin, to his credit, continues debunking Smith's words.
That I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures.
That was also a rough moment.
I would have loved to know specifically what historic, iconic figures, because I know Dr. King went to jail. I know Dr. Jim Lawson went to jail. I know that they went to jail, but they did not hold classified documents. They did not pay off porn stars. They did not try to overturn an election. They did not overstate the value of their properties to apply for business loans. So therefore, there literally is no comparison.
Exactly. From Martin. Exactly.
When you're suffering like that, because we know we have.
Stop.
And that's what he articulated.
When you're suffering. Go to my iPad. This story is from June, this is from 2016. Hundreds claim Donald Trump doesn't pay his bills in full. Dozens of lawsuits allege the businessman didn't pay what he owed. And you go through right here. The small businessman won a bid for a $100,000 grand piano to install in Trump's Taj Mahal. Guess what? Trump refused to pay him, only paid $30,000. Show me a black man who could do that. 200 liens since the 1980s were filed by contractors and workers who said they were stiff. Show me a black woman who could do that. 253 subcontractors on a single project were not paid in full or on time. Show me a black woman who could get away with that. 24 Fair Labor Act violations by Trump Plaza Casino and Trump Mortgage for failure to pay minimum wage or overtime. Show me a black person who could do that.
At this point, Martin is just schooling Stephen A.
I'm fully aware that I've been in the news over the last few days, paraded all over social media as well, after comments I made during my appearance on Fox News' Hannity last week with the one and only Sean Hannity himself.
Now, Smith would attempt not necessarily an apology, but a video for clarity, not once.
Well, it's easy to take things out of context.
But twice. And he was scolded by many.
There's no way that any logical, sane black person can identify, relate to Donald J. Trump, the twice impeached, 91-time felony count charged ex-president who lost the popular vote, 6 times bankrupt, lost 3 civil cases, defamation, found liable civilly of sexual assault, and for fraud on the Trump organization. That's just an abbreviated list.
Reese Colbert and Erica Savage would rip him.
And I don't like black people being attached to somebody who has this laundry list because it perpetuates the idea of black criminality, which is dangerous to our existence, which is why people feel empowered to shoot us 5 seconds into a motherfucking traffic stop because we're criminals.
Rachel Lindsay and Van Lathan at Higher Learning had a really thoughtful convo on the subject.
In terms of Stephen A. Smith, I do feel like how incredulous he was in the response to the criticism was a little bit annoying.
I agree.
So when people come back and they take you to task for it, or they speak at cross purposes to it, I don't understand the chastising that came from him on the other side of it.
Yeah. I think that it was more about being right than it was about, because he constantly says, I don't care, right? That's the part that I find interesting. I don't care. I don't care about this. I don't give a damn what people have to say. But then you go on your podcast and you're constantly trying to prove how you aren't the things people are accusing you of without specifically addressing the statement that was at issue. It's not even just how he presented black people to this Fox News audience, which, to your point, Sean Hannity wouldn't have him on. They talk about being friends. That's how he introduces him. Stephen A. Smith doesn't like to say he's my friend. And Stephen A. is like, well, I am your friend. I would imagine Sean Hannity knows how Stephen A. was going to answer that question before he even brought him on. Stephen A. Smith has to know that as well.
Author Jeff Pearlman expressed his frustrations with Stephen A. as well.
So I did an earlier video about Stephen A. Smith. Then I took it down because I didn't feel like that I conveyed it correctly. And really what I want to say is, why do you have to have an opinion about everything? Like, why are you, Stephen A. Smith, successful by all measures? Why are you going on Fox News? Why are you going on Hannity? And why are you comparing Trump's legal situation to that of the plight of black Americans? It's insane. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And if you did some research into Trump, and I wrote the book about the USFL, I know a lot about Donald Trump and his history. There is no comparison to be made. Black people are on over and over and over again. And here's this guy, Donald Trump, and I'm just being honest here. When the Central Park Five were exonerated, he continued to call for their death penalty and refused to accept it. I mean, he's a bad guy. When he had Queens housing, he limited the amount of available units for blacks. Not a good guy. So stop talking like you know, because you actually don't know in this subject.
The NAACP would also weigh in. Relatable? Show of hands, anyone in your black family have 88 felony charges pending, filed for bankruptcy 6 times, made an attempt to overthrow a presidential election and our democracy, and still have the ability to fall asleep in court and dream of being POTUS? Lastly, great memory here from one Twitter user who wrote, when Trayvon Martin was murdered, Stephen A. Smith implied that maybe young black kids shouldn't wear hoodies. When Dana White hit his wife on camera, Stephen A. Smith basically apologized for having to cover it. And people are shocked he's on Hannity? Good question. If there are any stories we missed, if there are any that you, the viewer, would like to submit, get at me and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. DMs are open. Support the channel. All of our content is free. It's the least you could do. Become a paid channel member or go to tyt.com/join to support the network as a whole. Thank you so much. Have a great day.